Hi, this is Grover with Blue Collar Codes, the quick and dirty, going over episode 8, functions. If you wish to follow along, please find the file episode8.py in the GitHub repository, which I've linked in the video summary. So in Python, function definition is relatively straightforward. You use the def keyword here, space function name, and then parentheses, and then you have variable types or argument types within those parentheses. And then a colon, and then you have the code block, and then you don't need to have a return statement. If you don't need to return anything, then it will automatically default to return none. Else, if you need to return a value, then you have the return statement here. So just one thing of note that I may not have mentioned yet is when you are going to use a function, it's called a function call. And when you're creating a function, this first line is called a function header, code block, return statement. So one thing of note is remember that you have to define a statement first before you can use it. Now, it may seem arbitrary or pretty straightforward, or why would you make that mistake ever? Well, it can come about if you don't organize your code properly and you kind of shoot from the hip. You know, as you're just starting out, it most likely will be something you run into when you create your first larger program that has multiple things going on at once. You might find you need to translate or transform some data, and instead of going up or going to a different file or module to add something, you're just going to add something in place and then try to use it elsewhere, and then you're going to find out it hasn't been defined yet. So just something to keep in mind. So we're going to showcase a bit of the different argument types. You have positional arguments, keyword arguments, default arguments, and then we're going to, barely touch upon these two. Because what I would like to do when I go over these two is give you kind of better real-life examples of when these would be used. Because the examples I'm going to give here, just to show you how they are used or what they do, are not really useful or don't have much utility. So starting off with positional arguments, a simple function here, pythag, takes two positional arguments, and they can be in any order for this equation, so it doesn't really matter, right? But then when you get to subtract, you find that position does matter. So the first variable put in becomes the A, and the second variable put in becomes the B, so then it becomes more important which variable you put in first. Now what you can do to avoid that pitfall is use what are called keyword arguments. And that's basically what is being used during a function call. You're putting in keyword arguments by assigning these items the values when you're actually calling that function. So remember these are just positional arguments, but you're in the function call, you're using keyword arguments. The other one of the first three is the default value. And so basically it's a positional argument, and then you have basically a keyword value pair that you're using for the second argument. And so if the second argument is omitted during a function call, then it'll default to this value. And just remember then, if you're going to actually put in that second variable, it does become B. So then positionally it does matter still. So again, a way to avoid that is by using keyword arguments when you're calling a function. So vargs is a way to collect or to show in the function definition or the function header that you're going to take an arbitrarily large amount of arguments. Simple list or arguments that can be turned into a tuple. So this is not keyword arguments. So any values that can be accumulated into a tuple, that's what that asterisk means. It's just collecting any arguments you put in. So now when you call it, you can just have any amount of different variables. And it'll just automatically collect them all, put them into a tuple, and then you can use or work on that tuple within your code block. And here we're kind of avoiding a code block. We're just putting the entire code block in the return statement. So that is something that you can do. You don't necessarily need a code block. I didn't touch upon that before, but that is something that you can do. You can just put the whole code block here for a very simple function. And then the keyword collection works in the same way, except it just arbitrarily large amounts of different keyword values. And you'll find that that's used a lot more in tkinter or GUI elements or more complex functions or classes, class creations or methods. And here I just wanted to showcase quickly that I made a function that is going to create a tkinter button, and here you're taking the keyword arguments that are then plugged into the button creation, and it could be the background is blue, the corners are rounded by X amount, the text on the inside is white, what have you. And that's where that utility kind of comes in. And so this was just a brief overview of function creation and the different argument types. Join me again next time, and we'll get deeper into Python and keep learning. Thanks again.